Hi, I'm Buffy and I talk about movies, and in my quest to watch as many Oscar-nominated films as I can, I watched one battle after another, and I want to talk about it. So One Battle After Another is directed by Paul Thomas Anderson and stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Teyana Taylor, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro, and in this star-studded affair, a relatively unknown but immensely talented Chase Infinity. I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. I don't watch trailers because I like going into films blind, but unfortunately I had seen a trailer before watching this film, because it was shown in one of the theaters where I was waiting for another showing to begin. But here on my silly little channel, I avoid talking about the stories of films that I like the plague. So I'll do the same here. I have to say that even though I hate that trailers in general show parts of the story that I don't want to know, this trailer didn't spoil much and actually did a good job of not revealing the overall tone of the film, in my opinion. I think it kind of deliberately looked less stylized and more like a run-of-the-mill kind of movie experience than it actually was, so I appreciated that. I like how surprised I was with the tone when the film got going. Now let's start off by talking about the technical aspects of the film. First of all, I absolutely love Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography, and if you're unfamiliar with his work, I think One Battle After Another could be a great gateway to his darker and more serious stuff. As I understand, this movie was shot on film, and it has quite a distinct sense of style, with long one-ers, tight close-ups on characters, and intentionally sporadic, almost montages. I thought the film looked amazing in general. The sound design and sound mixing was also great, and although the score for the film didn't blow me away, it didn't feel overbearing or hinder my experience of watching the movie. It was appropriate and effective. However, there was of course at least one extremely obvious ADR in the film. I don't know what's up with these high-budget, insanely well-coordinated, detail-oriented, and masterful films, but for some reason they keep ADRing some lines in the most obvious of ways imaginable. At least in Train Dreams, the words matched the lips. This one is more of a wake up dead man situation.
Catch him and get your life back.
No, very much not, no.
All this Michigas is real.
Meet me at Genesis right now.
Even though we don't see Benicio del Toro's mouth here, it's blatantly obvious that there are not these many syllables leaving his face right now. I'm pretty sure though, literally nobody else cares about this stuff as much as I do, so let's call this segment in my reviews Buffy's nitpicks that don't matter at all, but she's still gonna mention them and try to ruin your movie watching experience for no reason at all. Thank you very much. Anyway, to move on to the things that do matter, let's talk about acting in the film. I want to start with Teyana Taylor's character and performance. I can't think of anyone better suited for this role. She's so badass, beautiful, sexy, charismatic, and compelling. I absolutely love her in the film. She's an extremely complex character that could also have been simplified or turned into a stereotype very easily, but the way Teyana plays her shows how much thought went into this portrayal. This quote-unquote hypersexualized revolutionary who uses her looks as a means to achieve her set goals that serve many people and not just herself is also selfish and flawed and a victim in more ways than one. I loved her when she was on screen, but unfortunately she disappears after the first about 40 minutes of the film, and as soon as she does, you feel the void left by the lack of her huge, impactful presence. I really wanted to see more of her and learn more about the character, her life, and motivations, but we don't get that, unfortunately. Now, I've heard some people talk about the fact that this character is not a good representation of a black female revolutionary and that it's shallow and again hypersexual, and that's bad. And let me tell you something, I'm definitely not about to tell black people what they should or shouldn't take away from this character. I'm whiter than a cloud. There's not an ounce of rhythm to be found in this body, bitch. But I'll just say that I didn't feel like this character or actress for that matter were exploitative or misinterpreted black women in general. Firstly, I think no one character should carry a burden of representing a whole people. Leonardo DiCaprio's or Sean Penn's characters don't represent all white men. Why should black women in this one film represent all black women in the world? These are individual characters with complex lives and questionable morals. Now, I wouldn't feel comfortable talking about this without seeing a few think pieces about this whole situation. I will link two in the description. One is Joulzey's video that's critical of the depiction of this character, and the other one is Lenny's Lenses video, that's a little difficult to say, that I agree with more, if I'm honest with you. Why this character is actually super interesting and intricate, and why she is more complex than we might think or remember after watching the film just once. I think it's an interesting and important conversation to be had regardless of where you stand, but me being who I am, again, whiter than snow bitch, I'm just going to leave it at that and implore you to watch both of these videos and just think about it more in general, even if it makes you a bit uncomfortable, and especially actually if it makes you feel a bit uncomfortable, because the feeling of discomfort is where our biases tend to hide themselves, and getting to the root of that feeling, in my opinion, is the way to discover, acknowledge, and confront them. I have to say though, me not being American, I didn't know about the Jezebel stereotype and its origin, and it was fascinating and frankly absolutely enraging and infuriating to learn about it, but Lenny's video explains it very well, so check it out. Regardless of what you think of the character, I think just we can all agree that Teyana Taylor's portrayal of the character was absolutely magnificent, very detailed, very complex, very nuanced. I loved it. Now moving on to other actors, I want to give a huge shout out to Benicio del Toro, who was absolutely fantastic in this movie. He is so funny and entertaining in super subtle ways, and his charisma and charm are on full display in this film. To be honest, I was more interested in this character and his whole operation that he's running behind the scenes than anything Bob, Leo's character does in the film. I thought Benicio del Toro was a perfect choice for this role, and he absolutely nailed it. I loved every second he was on screen. A special and huge shout out to Chase Infinity as well. I've never seen her in anything else before, and she was so great in this movie. I can only imagine how daunting it must be to act alongside some of the biggest names in Hollywood and hold your own against them while also being directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. Or maybe she's just badass and confident and didn't give two fucks about any of that, which, I mean, good for her. She deserves to be this confident because whatever it is that she's doing, it's working. I thought she was amazing. Sean Penn plays the villain of the story, if you will, and I thought he was great, very believable, insanely evil, and very easy to hate. Although he, I think, tries to give a little bit more nuance than that, but at the same time, his character is just like a horrible person that we love to hate. He deserves to be hated. I think the way he walks was an interesting choice, but I kind of could have done without it, if I'm honest. It was a little too goofy for my taste, but there is a justification of that in the tone of the film, I think. Not in the story itself, but the way the movie presents, kind of. And now I'm going to get to the potentially controversial part of my video. Here we go. Leonardo DiCaprio plays the main character of the film, this stoner, bumbling, essentially deadbeat dad. He was really good in the film. He did a solid job comedically for sure. He was quite believable throughout the movie, even though this scene was a bit overacted in my opinion. But overall, he was great. He was the way he always is. He was Leo, the actor man who's always solid. Now, here's the controversial part. First of all, in my opinion, and I can't stress this enough, it is my personal opinion, I don't think he's as good of an actor as Hollywood makes him out to be. Okay, oh my god. I said it. I think Hollywood was just surprised that an insanely conventionally attractive young man, blue eyes, blonde hair, I mean, America's wet dream of a man coming off of the sap fest that was Titanic, turned out to be a very, very good actor. So that just became a thing, and now he is overly praised and regarded as one of the best actors ever. But I don't see it that way. I'm sorry. A lot of the times when I watch Leonardo DiCaprio's performances, I see the eager actor man trying to impress audiences and being aware of his performance too much. Don't get me wrong, he's never bad or unconvincing. I just think he's more one note than we are willing to admit. And if he needs to show aggression, a lot of the times it comes off as overacting or performative. This scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood being a very illustrative example in my opinion. Watching this scene, I can hear like Tarantino going, you know what, Leo, just go crazy. And Leo just trying to escalate things and going crazy. I don't know, I see the actor, okay? I'm sorry. Again, all of this is my opinion, and I'm not saying that I'm right about anything, but I've just never felt the hype about Leo. I think he has 3 exceptional performances under his belt. One is in Catch Me If You Can. This may be controversial also, but I think It's one of his best roles ever, and he was so well cast for that film. The Departed, where he's really great, and The Wolf of Wall Street, where I completely forgot that I was watching an actor, let alone a specific actor that I'm not the biggest fan of. I thought he was phenomenal in The Wolf of Wall Street, and he deserved to have gotten an Oscar for that, but instead he got it for The Revenant, a great film, of course, with a solid but not really mind-blowing performance. All of this is to say that I'm not the biggest fan of Leonardo DiCaprio, although I truly do appreciate his artistry and talent. And he was really good in One Battle After the Other, with solid comedic timing and undeniable relatability. But while watching the film, I couldn't help but wish for a lesser-known actor to have been cast in his place. I'm sorry, I just think it could have been more effective. We've seen Leo in so much stuff that I think I can't help but blend some of his other characters into this one. It's just that a lot of the times I just see DiCaprio acting really well instead of seeing the character. I don't know why. And if in Tiana Taylor's and Benicio del Toro's cases, I can't think of anyone else better suited for these roles, it's the complete opposite in Leo's character's case. There are so many funny white actors out there, and any of them could have done as well, if not better, portraying this character, in my opinion. And probably no surprise here, I don't think Leo deserves a nomination here. If Lee Byung-hun wasn't nominated for No Other Choice, DiCaprio sure as hell shouldn't be for this. I'm sorry. Anyway, but let me reiterate this though. He wasn't bad. Even for me, I'm not the biggest Leo fan. He was really, really good, really solid in the film, but he was just like not that memorable in my opinion. Please don't yell at me, okay? I'm just saying how I feel. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. But I also stand by what I said. Thank you very much. It's my personal opinion. Thank you. Okay, now I'm going to go over the film in generalities. The film has quite a unique tone. It's kind of an action film slash a political satire slash comedy slash thriller kind of thing, and I think it works really well for the most part. I thought the pacing of the first act of the film was a little choppy, to be honest, as if it was originally meant to be longer, but had to be cut down to save time. It didn't feel too jumbled or messy, but again, that's where we focus most on Tiana Taylor's character, and I feel like she could have been fleshed out a bit more. I really would have loved that. But the second act of the film was actually some of the most entertaining shit I've ever seen. It's really funny, action-packed, kind of, and is paced really effectively. This is where we experience a lot of long one-ers that help with the immersion in the story and that keep the audience on the edge of their seat. A lot of it is really goofy and funny in the foreground, while a super efficient and much bigger picture operation is going on in the background. It was the most exciting portion of the film, and I had a complete blast watching it. The third act of the film can be described as more of a thriller, I guess, and it's a lot more small scale story-wise and focuses just on Leo and his daughter and their story, which is the main driving force of the film in general. But in the third act, the daughter's tale is the only thing we're watching basically. It was still suspenseful, entertaining, and quite unnerving in a very good way. Now, I'm going to try to explain the most important thing to consider while going into the film. The story, if you think about it too much, kind of makes absolutely no sense. The film asks enormous amounts of the audience's suspension of disbelief in terms of the logic and modern technology, not to give away anything. I like to think about movies way too much, I think. So if I were to dissect the story and certain story bits, I'd be sitting here going, none of this is possible and this couldn't have happened because that would happen. So this other thing also wouldn't happen, you know, that kind of thing. However, this is how I imagine you should go into this film. Forget about what you know about government surveillance and like modern technology. Imagine you're watching a film that takes place in a parallel universe that's very, very similar to ours, but just not quite. The film doesn't want you to focus on logic or likelihood of certain occurrences. It just wants to tell a story. It's a very clearly fictional world we're watching and very clearly not a real story. That feeling was actually introduced and reinforced by certain characters' names in the film. Sean Penn's character's name is Colonel Lockjaw, for example. And I think that's why it was so fun and pleasant to watch. Again, these are my personal impressions, opinions, and thoughts, but I think the filmmakers didn't want to tell a realistic tale. They wanted to tell a fictional story that is inspired by the things that happen in real life and comment on them heavily. In that aspect, it reminds me of some of Tarantino's work, where he'll take real life events and exaggerate or completely change them, making it obvious that you're watching a movie and not a real story. I love that. But if you want a film to be grounded in in reality, this one's not it, in my opinion. And now for my final thoughts on the film, I really enjoyed this movie and I'll probably watch it again before editing this video. It's a long one, but it certainly flies by in my opinion. It is fun, engaging, exciting, and tense. The pacing was on point for the most part, and it was just a super entertaining film to watch with compelling characters and an interesting story. I don't think there would be many people who wouldn't enjoy their experience watching this film, so if you haven't seen it yet, I implore you to check it out, and if you have, please let me know what you think of it. And now, as always, thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe if you're interested in more movie reviews, and if you feel like it, of course, and I'll see you next time. Bye! I want to start with, okay. Girl.